Hi all, it's PJ with Montevilla Sewing Centers. This video is colors and coatings. The link to the stabilizer cheat sheet can be found in the video description below, and I have listed the colors with the different stabilizers. Colors refers to the different colors of stabilizers. There is white stabilizer, there are black stabilizers, and there are beige stabilizers. The most common is, of course, white. And that's generally what you're going to use. It's the most common. The black, if you have a project that has a dark background and you're worried that the stabilizer is going to show through at all, you might want to go with a darker color. Also, if it's a cutaway and you're going to see the back of that and it's a dark colored project, again, you'd probably want to use a darker or the black stabilizer. When we get into the mesh type stabilizers, which are cutaways, there's a lot of different options, and this is where the beige comes in. So hopefully this will kind of solve the mystery of all of that. What I've got here are just some little felt circles, and this is my rendition of skin tone colors, which is really where the colored stabilizers come in. So the first thing that I'm going to do here is I'm just going to place stabilizers over these different colors so that you can see how sheer the stabilizer is. And then we're going to add fabrics in so that you can see the difference. This first stabilizer really isn't a stabilizer. And you can see here, this is actually a very, very sheer stabilizer. This is the Quilter Select Cutaway. It's a fusible, and it really isn't considered a stabilizer. It really is considered a fabric prep, but it's great for using in quilts. It will help you to hold up some extra stitches if you're doing embroidery on your quilt blocks. This is the most sheer of all of the mesh type stabilizers. This is the white Floriani no-show mesh or the OESD poly mesh. And once again, you can see this is pretty transparent. This is a new product from Floriani. This is what they call their power mesh. And in a 4x4 hoop, it will hold up a couple thousand additional stitches over their standard no-show mesh. Just slightly heavier. And then this is the beige. Still fairly transparent. When we start bringing in the fabric samples, you'll see where this one comes in. And then this is standard cutaway. And you can barely see through that. Pretty much will hold up the same amount of stitches as a standard no-show or poly mesh, but it is denser. And then this is, just so that you can see, this is the black no-show. Let's start bringing in the fabric samples. This is your standard no-show mesh or poly mesh. And I have a bunch of different fabric samples. All these fabric samples are white because as a general rule, this is where the colors will come into play. And this first one, this is just a linen fabric. And you can see here, so here's my arm. And this is kind of my skin tone right here. It's kind of in the middle. And you can see here, you can barely see this, which in reality is what you would want. This is white. The scenario here, and so pretend this is a shirt or a sweatshirt. And the reason that you would want to go with a different color of stabilizer is to reduce the show through. As a general rule, the theory here holds true for a stabilizer as it would for, say, a bra. If you have a white t-shirt, generally you're going to want to wear a nude color bra so that the bra doesn't show through. If you had a white bra on, the bra would show up quite well, as opposed to the nude would tend to blend in. And you can see here, so this is the white one, and it shows more. Actually, these two, the two lighter ones, show through more than this or the darker ones. If we use the beige with that same fabric sample, this one again almost goes away completely. And again, that's the whole purpose, because you don't want the shadow of the stabilizer to show through. If I do it this way and put the fabric over it, can you see that you can see the line right here? That's actually what you're trying to avoid. This again is the just standard no-show. And again, depending on your skin tone, this one may actually work well. On the really light colors here, it almost goes away. And on this one, you see it a little bit more here. Let's do it this way. So we've got the beige on the top, and this is just the standard. On the bottom, this is the standard no-show mesh. And then I'll put my fabric in between. So you can really start to see the difference. If we leave this one at the top, and here's our standard cutaway, which is much more opaque. Standard cutaway here, and then here's our white fabric. And you can really see the line there. So you can see how the sheer stabilizers really make a difference. So generally speaking, these are the two that you'd probably most be using. Just your standard no-show, and then here's your beige. And here are some different knits, which again is probably the more common use of these. And this is just a single knit. And here, this knit is heavy enough that we're really not seeing a lot of show through. But right here, this is the beige disc. And you can see there's almost no show through at all with either of those. And again, so here is the standard. And especially at this end, you can see a pretty significant line there. That's exactly what you're trying to avoid. This is a piece of, I think they call this power stretch. And it's much, much denser. But again, towards this end, you can really see a difference. I'm going to go back to this scenario because, once again, this is probably your most common scenario. This is, again, just a t-shirt knit. This is what's called an interlock or a double knit, and it is, in fact, heavier. And here, again, between these two, you're really not seeing a whole lot of difference. This is a thermal knit that has a weave. It's, you know. And once again, just depending on where your skin tone is in the scale, some of those are going to be more obvious than others. So if you're really trying to make sure that you don't have a lot of show through on your knits, you might want to just hold that up to your skin tone, your stabilizer, and your fabric to see how all of that's going to work out. So here is the black mesh stabilizer, and this is just a basic t-shirt fabric. So if you've got very, very dark skin, you may actually want to go with the dark, even though it's going to be on light. Because down here towards the bottom, and actually on, this is pretty translucent, so you're not getting a hard edge. But again, up here, you're really not seeing a lot of difference at all. Okay, so that's the scenario on the colors and why you would use one color over another. Coatings. What I call coatings is the type of adhesive that's on the basic stabilizer. So what I would consider a basic stabilizer, be it cutaway or wash away or tear away, doesn't have a coating at all, meaning it isn't fusible, it's not tacky, it's not water adhesive, none of that. It's just the plain stabilizer. Generally, to get this to stick to your material, you would use a temporary spray adhesive. Then probably the next most common type is a fusible. You can tell a fusible because it kind of has a shiny side, and that, of course, is the side that you would fuse to your fabric. And I think I've mentioned this before, but I'm going to mention it again. The fusible on stabilizers is designed to be a temporary fusing. It isn't a permanent fusing like an interfacing. You would fuse it onto the back of your fabric and then do your embroidery, but then you need to be able to peel that up and either tear it away or trim it away around the embroidery. So just know that the fusible in a fusible stabilizer is intended to be temporary. If you fuse it down and then you pick up the edge, you're going to be able to pull it up relatively easily. Fusibles are one of my favorite products, and I get this a lot. Which stabilizers should I purchase? I'm going to, of course, say you need one of each because they really do something different, which is not necessarily a practical scenario. If you are having trouble deciding, a lot of times I will go with the fusible product, because if you need to adhere it to something, you've got the fusible right there. If you don't need to adhere it, or you're just going to be hooping up and it's not as imperative that you fuse, you can just use it without actually fusing it on. What I will do in that case is when I hoop, I will generally hoop it with the fusible side up. Chances are good at some point you're going to press, and that will then in fact just press it to your fabric. But again, you can always just fuse it to your fabric to start with. The next type of product or coating is the water activated. And this is just an example. This is the Floriani. OESD has a similar product. The Floriani has one with a grid and one without. And again, if I kind of rotate this, I'm not sure that the camera's going to pick that up. But again, there's a shiny side, and that's the side with the adhesive. What you would do with this is I just use a damp sponge and just kind of run it over the adhesive. Give it a couple of seconds so that the water can actually activate the adhesive and then attach your fabric. You can do this two different ways. With both the tacky and the water activated, you can hoop it up and then activate the adhesive and then stick your fabric down. Or you could activate the entire piece and stick your fabric down and then hoop. Both of those scenarios will work. Anytime you can actually hoop the goods with the stabilizer, you are much better off. You will get a better product in the end. When you go to remove this, if you have really activated that glue well, it may be difficult to remove this because the glue is pretty strong. What I do is just use a squirt bottle, and I'll kind of lift up the stabilizer and I'll squirt into the edge where you're having trouble lifting it up. Give it a couple of seconds once again for the glue to activate, and it will then become a little bit gummy, and you can then just either cut away or tear away, whichever the product. And then the final product is either a tacky or a plus. And this has a protective paper on it. If you peel away the protective paper, on the other side, and again, it's shiny so you can tell which is which. You can kind of see that shine in there. This is tacky. So once again, you have two options here. You could just cut your entire piece of stabilizer, remove the protective backing, put your fabric down, and then hoop. Or you could hoop up a piece of this, and you would hoop this with the paper side up, score the paper, remove the paper, and then put your piece down, and then do your embroidery. I do a whole section on just how to deal with tacky stabilizers in the hooping part. Okay, that's it for colors and coatings. Thanks.